Hey, I'm half asleep. Don't mind me if I say anything really stupid. This is going to be the first C# application I've written from scratch in a while. This is in response to something I saw the other night. Guys asking how to filter the source code for a web page. It's not terribly complicated, but of course you got the usual responses saying never use regex on etc, etc. I happen to disagree. In this case, I think it's a pretty good use case for a regular expression because we're talking about trying to get one single well-defined element. If you're trying to actually parse HTML, that's a totally different thing. But if you just need one piece of HTML rather than the entire thing, I think it's fine. Now, of course, the other night, I wrote this in Rust because I was really bored, and there it is. Or there's an early crack at it. This actually does not work. The reason it doesn't work is that getting HTTPS to work in Rust is insanely annoying. It's not Rust's fault. It's the fact that compiling OpenSSL on Windows is a huge pain in the butt. So don't hold that against it. I got that done in 5-10 minutes on my Mac. I think I finally got this sorted out on this machine, but it took a while. So without further ado, we're just going to get started. The first thing that we need is a set of regular expressions. I've got those from the Rust version right here. I'm just going to add them in. Obviously, this is not valid C#. Now it is almost. Static regular expression. No, that's not a thing. There we go. That should about do it. So we'll just do the same thing down here. And you see what I mean when I say that we're talking about one well-defined element, right? I'm looking for span class this and span class this. So it's not rocket surgery. Really not a big deal at all. I'm not trying to understand how to render a table or something insane like that. I'm just trying to grab one text pattern out of the entire thing. Now, these are very simple regular expressions, and they don't actually work for the web page that we're talking about. Because, I mean, of course, this thing is put together with PHP. There are hard returns everywhere. You get the same thing. I'm not bragging on PHP. You get the same thing with any kind of a server-side generated page, right? But that's an easy thing to fix, and so we're not going to worry about it, right? So what we're going to do is expect the user to supply an argument from the command line for the purposes of this video, because it's annoying to run things in the command line. And when you're talking about C#, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to supply the address just by default. He provided it right here. He's trying to track, I think, stats from some game. Nothing against that, so perfectly fine. Just for safety's sake. So if they try and run this program without, one argument, it won't work. So what we have to do here is get the content of the page. I don't remember if a client is disposable. Looks like it is. I'm not used to clients being disposable or everything. If you look at the Rust code here, the client is not wrapped in anything. This is because in Rust, as soon as this object leaves scope, it's destroyed. So we don't have to worry about it holding on to connections after the fact. But in C#, that's not a thing, so we do. We're going to download a string from the address, which is going to be args0, just like that. That's going to be the content that we're going to work with. And we actually want to filter this though, because I said that these are too simple to actually work on the web page itself. So watch this. Now, this is not a highly efficient way to do this, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it is. This is probably woefully, terribly inefficient. But what you have to understand is that even if we're tripling, quadrupling, quintupling the amount of time that this operation takes, we're only quintupling the portion that takes place in memory, you know, when the program executes, which is going to be probably taking this from a runtime of 1 millisecond to a runtime of 5 milliseconds. In comparison to the amount of time it's going to take to actually go to the server, have the server generate the return values, and then have the the network carry those back to us, forget it. That's going to be easily 1500 milliseconds. So this is string scrub content, string content. And our return value is going to be basically a new string. Content dot where we want to filter out all the new lines. Oops. And we want to convert this to a character array. So that we can then convert it directly into a string and return it. This is exactly what I did in Rust, except that in Rust it looks a little bit different. And I don't have it here in this version of the code, unfortunately. I can write it really quickly. So it would be content string content dot cars dot filter I think that's going to be correct. Yep. So I mean, it's not like, you know, complicated or anything. It's actually shorter than the C# version. Because collect operates on any iterator. And so there's no reason to collect this into one collection, the array, which requires an allocation and everything, before collecting it into another collection, that being the string. Now, I don't actually think that's going to introduce any extra inefficiency, because I think that the reason it has to be an array is that a string is actually a character array behind the scenes, but I don't know that, so, you know, I'm not ragging on C#. It's still going to be a very fast operation in general. So we have the scrubbed content here, and for that content, these span class patterns should be fine. Let's find out real quick. So, oops. This is a veritable minefield of exceptions waiting to happen. And in Rust, that meant that we had to do a lot of error handling. In C#, what that means is we can expect this to blow up in our face if anything goes wrong, anything at all. Non-invocable member groups cannot be used like a method. Okay, so it's actually just an array, probably. There we go. Metal span pattern matches. It may not match. We're going to cast all of those matches, and this is because this actually returns an enumerable, but not a generic enumerable. So we cast that to a typed enumerable. We call single, which will explode if there are none, or if there's more than one. I expect only one. We grab groups. 0 is going to be the full match. 1 is going to be just the portion right here. That is actually incorrect right there. We want that because I tested it out earlier, and that the original expression I had actually pulls out practically the entire page between, you know, an opening and closing span tag. But anyway, we don't want this to work if the content isn't there. So it's okay if there's an exception. I'm not going to cry about it. It's one of the things that I sometimes don't understand about Rust is that you feel bad writing unwrap in so many places, but sometimes you're like, there's no other reasonable course of action here, so what do I care? Alright. Just because. Oh, I forgot one thing. This one, for whatever stupid reason, has a ridiculous amount of white space around it. And when I say this one, I'm talking about 0 LP right there. So, let's... Oh. There we go. So, if you'll notice, this is still... Oh, well, it came up. So it's good. That's our actual product. The Rust version of this program was something like 60 lines in length. Largely because there was more work to do in extracting the matches, well, with all the error handling. There was also a little bit more code involved in the web client stuff. I'm not really sure why, but if you look at it real quick, I actually have the web client stuff written. Oh, it's mostly the error handling. Like, you have the error here, and then you have the OK thing, and then you have to read the OK thing into a string. So, you know. Basically, it's just that there's a little bit less syntactic sugar written in the other thing. Oh, one other technicality. The Rust version that I wrote, it does include tests. So, I mean, you can subtract some of the line count from the Rust version if you want to. Anyway, here's the C# version. I'm going to upload this video and post this to the guys. His little question on learn programming. Well, you know, hopefully somebody learned something from it. I am glad that this one came out nice and short, so I don't have any excuse not to go ahead and put it up this weekend. 15 minutes isn't bad. Hope you enjoyed the video. The next episode of the CRUD, what was it called? The Poly Replacement Library. The Circuit Breaker. Next episode of the Circuit Breaker series should be up as soon as I'm done editing it. But I have a bunch of photographs to edit first because I just went to 16.2 tonight and took a bunch of pictures. So, at some point this weekend. Right? Right. I'll see you guys next time.